74 episodes of On the Buses and 3 films. And the first film of On the Buses that went out made $1 million in 6 weeks.
Reg was very businesslike. He didn't really muck about off screen.
The minute you put the dark wig on and you parted in the middle, you know, I looked like the person I was imitating as Olive because I based Olive on a member of my family.
He wanted to run a proper service for the public.
His big visual is being harassed and being upset, and of course he was that all the time.
Oh, if only I get that now. I'll get you.
We were always on the set and we were asked questions by Roy Skeggs, who himself had not, I think, done many comedies, if any, at that time.
Sir James Carreras, who then owned Hammer, called me in and said, we're going to make a big screen version of On the Buses. I said, well, I'm not very keen on the TV. Do you mind if I don't? He said, make it or go. I made it.
We found a story which was based on the original thing, where in Nottingham, at that time, they'd started wanting to use women bus drivers. And the men went on strike. They wouldn't have it. And they did all sorts of things to stop it. And that was the basis of the first film.
Effectively, it's a big screen version of a small screen hit. And let's remember that those shows on television were getting somewhere between 15 to 18 million viewers a week.
I heard the news by Ronnie Chesney ringing me up and saying, we're making a film, there's no money in it. I always remember that was the first thing he said. We're making a film, it's got no budget. The budget for the cast is $7,500, so don't be stroppy about it.
But my first budget was nearly 100,000. And the powers that be said too expensive. So I cut a week off the schedule, went from 5 weeks to 4 weeks shooting, knocked it down to £80,000. We were talking to Bob Kellett to direct at the time. And I said, there's a week off the schedule, Bob, and he said, goodbye. So Harry Booth came in, who was used to shooting rapidly, and we shot it bang on 4 weeks the schedule. And we came in £900 under budget.
I had to be at the studio 8 o'clock in the morning, I was working at 9 o'clock at night. Because I was in every scene. And the others weren't in every scene, they didn't have to hang about all day long. I was on the overall salary for the film, and they weren't paid hourly like film people are, or however long they do.
Harry Booth was a television director, and we shot it on television format. Okay, we used 35mm colour and all the normal things for feature film, but I said to him, let's do an extended television show, which we did. It turned out to be a fine feature film.
He was recommended by Roy Skeggs, and he was very good.
Again, he was a guy's guy because he would listen to what we were saying, to what Roy Skeggs would say.
And then Harry had to go, because of the success of the first buses, Harry got a big job in Australia doing commercials or something, and then Brian Izzard, who was our television director, came in.
Did the last film, didn't he?
Yeah.
We used almost every street in Boreham Wood, lots of houses in Boreham Wood, nothing on the stages at all. It was an all-location picture, based at the studio.
And of course, you can still recognise so many of those places and locations in the locale if you go up them today. You drive up Bournemouth High Street and you hear the jingle of the music from the first film, It's a Great Life on the Buses, and you can see that it was filmed there. You go up some of the side roads and you can see where they were stopping and where the inspector got, you know, the water came all over him when the bus went through there, past the drains and so on.
And then turn around Betty's house, which again was about 5 or 6 streets along from the studio. And that caused quite a stir because that's where they demolished the bus stop. The Andria Lawrence character, and of course she's got 3 pairs of knickers hanging out on her line. And that's the signal that her husband's out.
She was having a little bit of fun with Jack. I had this scene with Bob on the bed, and then it was all going, quick, I'm grabbing this and grabbing that, and it's really funny.
There was Wendy Richards and my daughter, and they were housewives. They'd come from getting their laundry. They set about it. And I said to my daughter, I said, really whack him, you know. Don't mess about. We want it for real. We want him to say, "Oh, real."
Reg was very businesslike. He didn't really muck about off screen. I will always remember I was on the bed and we hear my husband pulling up with a lorry. He runs down the stairs and the front door open and he's swashed behind the front door with the piece of glass in the front door squashing his face. I'll never forget that. It was so hysterical.
Reg needed to learn to drive the bus, and we got him to drive it. A nice man came in and he learned. Within a week, he was fine. And we found that with that capacity, we could stick all the props and the lighting, and everything on the bus, and Reg would drive it to the location. And we'd unload the equipment and put on the passengers.
It was very good of Reg to do that, actually, because he was quite clever. In the second film, where we went in a theme park and he had monkeys crawling all over him while he was driving the bus. It was excellent.
I think they had about 4 buses in total, and they kept moving them around. They had 3, I think, which were actually drivable, and 1 was just sat there, here, there, and everywhere, but just to fill up the space to make it look like they had more.
Reg had an accident or something, and the insurance company said he should be on the skid pan and know how to control a bus, and that's why he went on the skid pan, and the inspector fell off the back of the bus.
When you're driving around, they turn the water on, and you have to put your foot on the brake. Well, first of all, there's an expert behind you on the floor, and you mustn't touch the brake yourself. So don't touch the foot brake, whatever you do. And he said, "No, I want you to put your foot down, and when you turn around like that." And he said, "Oh, come on." He went round. No, he said, "That's no good." And eventually he got me up to speed, and as I was turning around, he pulled this, and the bus went. Oh God, I wonder where I was. He said, "You got the idea of it now?" I said, "Now let's take it. Let's go for real."
At the time of the film, they used RM200, which is the only route master that actually appears in the On the Buses films. Now, all bus drivers in London, when they went through the London Transport Test, actually had to endure the skid pan. Now, when you look at it, you think there's a good possibility that bus is going to tip over, and they don't. I mean, they're very well balanced. The centre of gravity is quite low. So despite all the spectacular appearance of the shot, there is no real chance of the thing turning over. So it is quite safe, but it is spectacular. And if you were on the bus at the time, I think it'd be quite an event to actually be sitting in a bus and actually taking part in that.
They saw me all the time coming, hanging on the bus like this, it was going around like that, and I was supposed to fall off at the end, and the director said, "We can't let you fall off, Stephen, it's too dangerous because it's still moving." And we did it, and I was told, it's only going about 4 miles an hour. So what they did was, in fact, they got a rope and fixed it round me so it couldn't be seen, and tied to the stairs of the bus. And what it was, I fell sideways like that, off it, but that much from the ground. Because it stopped, the rope stopped me like that, right there. And then the stuntman had to do the last little bit, hit the ground himself, and he got a clap. So dangerous stuff, filming.
Olive got a job in the depot too at one time. Was she going to drive a bus or something?
She was going to be a cook, but no, well, we did that as well. But the funny thing with Olive was when she was very pregnant in the sidecar.
Which they shot on the last day of the film in case there was an accident. You see it and you think, what are you steering with? I was steering with 2 pieces of string, and I don't drive. And so all those screams were real. I was absolutely unbalanced. I was, But I mean, it worked out to a lovely sequence. It's the one that everyone remembers. They always talk about the motorbike sequence.
I thought it had a bit of a chance, but on the first night, Harry Booth, the director, and I went to HBO Road and Finchley Road, the 2 EMI principal cinemas. We saw the first house at 1, there was about 40 people. Went to the second house at the other one, and there were 20 people. So we cancelled the celebration dinner afterwards and came home very dejected. The next day opened in Yarmouth and broke house records. And it opened round the country and broke house records everywhere. It's quite incredible. On that budget, in the first 6 weeks, it grossed over £1 million in UK and Australia alone.
I went and saw the film at Wood Green on the North Circular. It's now Jehovah's Witness Hall. I don't know if that's justice or what. But I sneaked in one afternoon with my husband. We just drove in and sat in the back row and watched it. No premiere, no nothing, because they sneaked it out. They thought it was going to be a failure.
It rained all the time. It was a dreadful summer. And what do? You know, a husband and wife and the kids at the seaside. They took them to the family film.
The critics hated it, but the thing with On the Buses is it's got something for the whole family. You can watch it as a family, and it was a proper working class comedy, and that's what people liked about it. And you have to remember, there's no violence in it, there was no swearing, so you felt safe as a family watching it all together. And of course, when it came to the cinema, the whole family could go and watch it. And it just became so popular that they started putting it all around, obviously, the seaside towns and everything. And it just became a box office phenomenal within the first few weeks.
There wasn't very much that could get near at that particular time. Even some of the big American stuff came over on that first Buses film, and it was, you couldn't get in anywhere.
It was released in London. I remember the ABC cinema in Fulham, and Bernie Delfont was there with Korea, so we were all invited to, I don't know why, but anyway, and he was phoning around all the picture houses in London to see what they'd taken that day or what they'd taken that week, and it was, he couldn't believe it, you know, 50,000, 24,000, oh my God, you know, and literally, the film made profit within, I think, 3 weeks. It was in profit.
Delfont was an old-fashioned showman. He didn't have computers or that. He knew that films are word of mouth, and if the film opened on Sunday night, say, and by Tuesday night people were queuing to, he knew that's all he wanted. He knew you were going to make money on that film.
I didn't realise how big it was myself, not until that happened in the cinema. And I happened to be walking down the road, a big cinema not far from me, and I knew the Buses was on, and I looked at this queue. God, I've never seen a queue. Not since the old days before television.
On the Buses was one of the few productions in cinema history where it recoups its production costs within about 2 weeks. I think within 4 or 5 weeks of release, it picked up £1 million. And it went on for Hammer Films to make over 3 million.
It caught the public's imagination at the time. I didn't realise how big the show was on television. Everybody wanted to see it. That was followed by word of mouth. It was a good film, a funny film. And people said, you must go and see this film. And they did.
Everybody was surprised, and we were better surprised. We were made producers because they'd never done a comedy film. They allowed us more latitude than writers would normally be given. We were always on the set, and we were asked questions by Roy Skeggs, who himself had not, I think, done many comedies, if any, at that time. But yeah, we were very lucky, and we were surprised that it did so well, obviously, you know.
But they all went well. They took a lot of money, but not as much as that first one that went out was the walloper.
Lord Delfont was very happy, yes, through Sir James Correos. They were very close, Variety Club friends, and they immediately said, let's do number 2.
Well, I mean, obviously they made so much money so quickly, they couldn't wait for us to write another one as quickly as we could. And they made it, and we had, for us it was difficult because we'd used so much of the buses in the first one, doing, you know, go outside in the road and so on, that we had to think of other ideas. That's why in the second one we took the bus into a safari park with all the, Windsor Park, wasn't it, with all the animals and things like that.
First we must get a plot. And Wolfe and Chesney, obviously experts at this, came up with Mutiny on the Buses, which was excellent. Tremendous follow-on to the first one.
Mutiny on the Buses, we were trying to make a film in the middle of a strike. It was the Conquer-Pearl War, there was no oil, there was no coal, the whole country was on strike.
Well, the lights.
We had emergency diesel generators, and we were only allowed to use them 2 or 3 times a week. And it was a nightmare, because you had to really rewrite the script as you went along.
The problem was, for the On the Buses production, that the Up Pompeii film, which starred Frankie Howard, the big screen version of the small screen hit, was being made on the stages at Elstree. Now, Up Pompeii is a historical comedy. It can only be made on a stage with a set. On the buses is on a bus, picking up people from bus stops, driving around streets.
We went to £120,000, my God, the second one, and a 5-week schedule. Again, we came in £1,000 on the budget, which was my norm.
It was all about money, wasn't it? See, Arthur was a layabout, my brother-in-law. So he wasn't bringing nothing into the house, so I was the only one bringing money into the house. Me to say I was going to get married, that means that's it. He'd have to go to work. And Mum didn't want it, you see. The good plots, they were, very good plots. The boys used to write some smashing plots.
A Mutiny on the bus, I had a baby, didn't I? But I remember then that he screamed over every line I said. He would lie absolutely quiet, whatever, and as soon as I opened my mouth, he would... And I actually had to come and shoot 2 days here afterwards, free. They said, could we shoot some of the baby? And I said, well, on condition you shoot my lines all over again. And that's what we did.
The thing when we were writing the film was, we won't do this idea because we could do that on telly. Let's do something that's not possible on television, like Reg driving with a sort of a cabin full of monkeys, Holly on the buses when they drove the bus into the sea. We did everything with a bus you could possibly do with a bus.
Yes. One of my last jobs was going out on location to pick up shots and various shots around Windsor Safari Park on the buses moving around and getting out of control because the chimpanzees had got back in, got inside and grabbed the steering wheel from Reg. So these were all establishing shots, careering here, there and everywhere and going around the front of it, front of the actual Windsor Safari Park.
Yeah, there was a lot of things there where they wouldn't let Steve and Lewis do it because it was too dangerous, and it was proved right. Because the line on the bus, they got it on and it actually attacked the trainer, and then they realised that lions don't like walking backwards, so they had great trouble getting it back off the bus.
The lion was supposed to come on the bus when I'm talking to Reg through the back of his window like that and touch me in the back. And I was supposed to put my hand around like that and touch its nose and say, go, get up. Oh, see a lion. So I said to the guy, I could do that. I could do that because I've touched the lion already. So the producer said, no, Stephen. He said, it's too risky. We can't have that. I said, you sure? So he said, yes, no. He said, the stunt man will do that. He said, give him your coat and hat. So I gave him my coat and hat. The lion savaged his arm.
He comes down the stairs and he's naughty and he claws the keeper. And the keeper starts clouting him, and then and I'm in this, and I'm trapped. So I've got this little door. I thought, God Almighty, what's happening here? I didn't know what to do. And they said to the cameraman, keep it rolling, keep it rolling, keep it rolling. And my face was like, and I wasn't acting. I could see this.
And then they had to have that scene where the chimp got on the bus. While Reg was sitting in the driving seat and got in with him, and it grabbed hold of him. Reg said, "It's gone."
I've been a wonderful special effects man, Des Bowie. I remember we had a sequence where the inspection pit was filled with foam. There was a fire, which Reg had to put out, and he used foam, and the pit was full of foam, and Reg has to fall in the foam. We had a stunt man to do the stunts, actually. Then we lifted Reg in, and Reg crawled out.
Well, it was the pit where they used to do it, put the buses over the top. They put the foam in it, you see, and of course we'll all fall into the foam. But it's this illusion. You see this foam there, and you just go on falling. And I put my shoulder out, because this foam, it's nothing, is it? All you're doing is just falling, bang, you're throwing yourself into this foam. And we were all coming out with, God blimey,
this one went on release, and immediately we didn't wait for the success. The first night, HBO Road, Fulham Road, capacity audiences. And that's the way it went all the way through.
It still didn't top the first one that ever went out, or the third. They still made a lot of money.
Went straight back into the studios and started doing our telly series. Then I divorced Arthur and the television series. And then we went and made the third film, with Arthur and I still together with the baby.
Well, soon after Mutiny on the Buses was released, EMI came back to us and said, please, can we have number 3? We thought, yes, we'd love to do it. Consulted the writers as always, and thought it was time to do something a little different. So I think it was the writer's idea to go to holiday camp.
For Holiday on the Buses, unfortunately, we weren't working here anymore. We'd left to go to Pastures New. But of the 3 films, I think it's probably one of the funniest. Has the funniest little elements of slapstick in it. Every time I see the exploding toilet and the drains going up and things like that.
Again, it was up by 20,000. It was 140. We came in at about 135.
Well, we realised that we'd done everything we could have think of in the buses, so we decided to take them off a normal bus service and put them in driving coaches for people in Pontins holiday camp. And we started off with a series of accidents in the bus garage, and they all got the sack. And they get the job in the holiday camp. When they arrive there, they find that their inspector is in charge.
Going out one day, I'm supposed to get lost. And I'd done it once or twice, the route. But this time when I came back, it was filming now. And I did get lost. And I thought, Jesus, where am I? And well, the only thing I can keep going, the film was going, and all these people were upstairs. And what was going under these branches? I could hear them all screaming and ducking. There was nothing I could do about it. Just couldn't go to the lane. I had to keep going. Oh dear, oh dear.
That's when we crashed the top of the bus, that one, because Reg was driving the people to visit a site or something, a museum or something. And on the way back, he said, I've got a date with a girlfriend, we're late, they've kept me waiting, she's going to think I'm not coming up. And so the says, look, if you take a shortcut down that road, you get back to Pontins much quicker. Oh, really? Yes. So he goes down that road, and of course there's a very low bridge, which he doesn't know anything about. And the next thing we know, he takes the whole lot of the bridge, and we had people sitting up there, and takes the whole lot of the top of the bus.
Those people actually were people who had paid to spend a holiday at Pontins. And they were being ordered around by Brian Izzard, do this, they loved it.
They were so pleased to be on a film, you can imagine. They were queuing up to get on the bus, and they didn't know the top of the bus was taken off.
Unfortunately, before we started shooting, Blakey, bless him, broke his ankle. That was 2 days before the shooting. So we immediately went away, and 2 Ronnies, brilliantly again, wrote his broken ankle into the script. And it became an integral part of the comedy, which was wonderful.
It was a charity do on a golf course, and it was the final hole where the bar was, and we were all standing in there talking, but something had happened, the weather wasn't too good. And I thought, oh, well, that's it. After waiting a couple of hours, I've had enough, I'm going. So I said bye-bye, different famous faces there, and I was going down. And as I walked away, I fell down this little hill, and it put my foot in a kind of a pothole as I went and broke my ankle.
So we said, don't worry, we'll write a bit in at the beginning of the film where you fall down and you're in plaster, and we get some fun out of it because Kate Williams would be the nurse and she'll look after you. Yeah. And nobody ever mentioned it. It went right through the film with his legs in plaster and his crutch. That's one of the advantages of being the producer and the writer. When you hit trouble, you've got to find a way out.
Roy Skeggs was an archetypal producer. He knew how to make a film for very little money, and he also knew how to get the best out of it by way of product placement and sponsorship. Particularly in the third film, when they went to Pontins in Prestatyn, so you had the Pontins sort of out there, all on the side of the bus, emblazoned across it. And that's very important, because if you think how well the films were doing at the cinema, and then how well the films did when they were repeated on television, and they had to leave it in, that was very good advertising for these companies. And Pontins wanted to get one over Butlins.
Well, Pontins was a member of the Variety Club, I think. Yes, and he...
I think a question of money. I think he was willing to
For
let us
nothing.
do it for nothing.
Yeah. He offered 2 or 3 holiday camps, but that's the one he wanted to publicise. It was a more modern one or whatever.
Yes.
And it was great because we had the hotel. There's a hotel near the camp, and the crew stayed on the camp. And I had negotiated a good deal, of course.
We had some holiday makers and we brought in a lot of crowd ourselves, and all the unit were crowd. I'm a star in that picture. I mean, lots of scenes, sitting, knocking back a gin and tonic or something. All the unit became crowd artists.
We had a lot of trouble with the holiday makers, but they were also willing to be used in the film for free.
Quite extraordinary, because they're coming up and asking for autographs in between, things like that, and sort of talking about you while you're doing a scene. Oh yeah, she's fatter than I thought, or she's thinner than I thought, you know what I mean? No, he's not as big. And it's you become sort of, you get tunnel vision. You just have to do it.
Very difficult to concentrate on your work, and then people are just aimlessly walking about. But they didn't know you were working. The camera would be somewhere, and they push, excuse me, do you mind? They're pushing a pram.
And the fact, of course, that we had the Olive's bum, which was not my bum, because the day before I decided it wasn't going to be my bum. So they auditioned about 18 people for my bum. Well, I didn't want to do it because the whole crew were there taking the mickey out of me, plus the cast. And I thought, no, this is all too embarrassing. So I said to Roy Skeggs, who was the producer, I don't have to do this, do I? And he said, no, no, no. And then they'd had 3 days casting the bum. It was hysterical.
We were actually shooting there for 4 weeks. Then we came back to the studio, and for the first time used a stage on one of the buses. That was for the sequence at sea, where Reg gets seasick on the boat with his girlfriend. The interior of Reg's house was a studio set. You had to have floating walls because there was 6 people in a small room, plus a camera and sound, etc. So you needed to float walls. That means take walls away to make room. And some interior chalets we shot in the studio.
We actually had this scene where they went with the girls to the seaside for the day, and I caught them. I went and followed them and found the bus on the beach. The tide was supposed to come in and be the bus would have about 6 foot of water around it like that. They actually built a wooden bus, and it was marvellous what they did because it looked so real. And they got this bus down and they were going to weight it with great weights and put it in there like that. And we were filming bits and bits and bits and then getting ready. It took a while. And we were chatting away there and somebody said, look. We looked round and the bus started going like that. And suddenly it fell over on its side. They hadn't put the weights in, the tide came in and it floated out to sea. It is absolutely true. They had to get the Coast Guard to come and rescue the bus.
And then, of course, they wanted to bring in some guest stars, so they brought in Kate Williams, Wilfred Bramble, Arthur Mullard, Queenie Watts, well-established people at the time that had been in other sitcoms, to flesh out the story more and set it all around the goings-on at the holiday camp.
We stayed in a hotel nearby, belonging to them, just up the road from there, you know. That was interesting as well, because we had other people there, like Wilfred Bramble and people like that, who were in the film staying with us, so always telling us funny stories, and extraordinarily fun.
We could tell you quite a lot about that. Oh yes, there was a lot going on, because obviously it was for the actors particularly, and you know, for everybody, the crew and everybody there. You know, it was a holiday in a way.
Well,
in the
it
evening.
was very good. He did lots of deals. I mean, like it had Michael Robin's wife, Hal Dyer. She had a part in it.
Yes.
He did deals with husbands and wives.
Oh yes. And we put Reg's daughter was in them too. We gave them all parts because we could put anybody in there. Obviously, they could be in the crowd, you know, and they'd come out and want to do something, you know, and that was it, you know.
The bus's crew, by this stage, we all knew each other so well that we were quite rude to each other. You know, just automatically we were quite rude to each other, and guest stars couldn't understand it. They thought we were really that nasty to each other. You know, I mean, Michael would say to me, "Get it right, love," you know. And, Stephen would say something. They just didn't understand the way our humour worked in those days.
We got it ready for, I think, August of that year, and it went straight into the cinemas. It was mass release. I think we knocked out 70 prints, which is a lot for UK release, and they were all used, and it again did extremely well.
The film that did the best on television when it was shown was Holiday on the Buses. So the first time it was shown was in 1979. It had over 13 million viewers. It was shown again in 1981 at Bank Holiday weekend, 15.5 million viewers, and then about 8 or 9 million viewers a few years later. This was 12, 13 years after the film had been made. Pontins is still getting a free advert in front of 15 million people who are watching film on television. So they had a very good investment in it. But well done to Roy Skeggs. He saw the opportunity and it brought money into Hammer.
Our films and the carry-ons, they may not be the greatest ever, but they're mild as the family can watch.
So the kids love it. They love it buses now. It's strangely enough. I say it's quite extraordinary, but it's still very popular when children see it. I know because I've got grandchildren and they love to see the videos of it.
It was the bus, it was the uniforms, you were dealing with the public, and it was unusual.
It was so enjoyable, the whole thing, It's a marvellous experience. We had so many laughs behind the cameras, that were happening to us. Some of it was unpleasantness, as I said, at different times, like getting all that water in my face when I was standing there at the bus stop in a big puddle. Right? What you have to do, you get a laugh. Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks ago, I switched the TV on, and there was On the Buses. So I sat there and watched it and enjoyed it and laughed, and all the memories coming back.
On the Buses had something for all age groups. You could sit down as a family and watch it and know you weren't going to be offended. Children could watch it and they could have a laugh. And as people have grown up, their children have started watching it and they've watched it with them. And now people who are grandparents have got their grandchildren watching it with them. And because ITV3 keeps showing it again, there's a whole new generation getting to see it for the first time.
We believed, every one of us believed in what we were doing. We never mugged anything. We acted it as you would a straight play, really. So you don't have to time funny lines because it's already there, the situation. And that was the lovely bit about it. It came over so real.
Of course, it's lovely to get nice write-ups, so to say, but we haven't got much for anything. Maybe Meet the Wife, we got some good writing.
Meet the Wife got very, and Roy, Ragtrade got very good writing. And it's the films which mainly got bad write-ups, because I say the film critics are so anti anything which is popular entertainment, carry-on films and so on. And they
don't like TV spin-offs. And
TV spin-offs. And the fact that they make money annoys them.
I've thoroughly enjoyed every moment of it. I wouldn't change anything.
On the station today, and they're shouting at me. And the bloke was had his little mic thing, and he was shouting out, "Get that train out!" So I was on the other platform.